I'm going to pick up right where we left off from our last meeting. So in our last meeting, I showed you how to duplicate objects. So these are all the cubes I made and I duplicated them. So you can see they're all here. There's cube underscore geo underscore 01, 02, 03, 04. So they're all in a sequence here and they're all, I can pick on any one of them. So if I want to pick on this one, I can move it around. I want to pick on that one, I can move it around. Okay. So let me get back because I want to keep them in their original position. So you can undo with Control Z. Okay, and it'll go back a few steps. All right, so now, but what if I wanted to control these objects as one thing? Like now, like I've copied all these things over here, but what if I wanted them back at the 0 point, or I wanted to move them, and I wanted to keep them always relative in their relative spacing between each other? Because if I have to copy, if I have to move each one of them individually, that's going to take a while, right? And I might not get it all correct. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to make a group, and groups are very handy. What you do to make a group is you have to pick all your objects. So I'm going to go into select mode. Okay. I'm going to just have my select tool and I'm going to pick on all the objects. So I can window select all of them, or I could pick them individually. So you would pick it and then you use the shift key, pick the next one, pick the next one, pick the next one. And then if you want to unselect, you could take one out. Like say you don't want that one, and you could actually use the control key. So, but I want them all in there. Okay. So let me do this one more time. There we go. Okay, so they're all selected. Here's another thing too. This is a side note. Your last object, the green one, whatever your last selected object will be green. So now if I went to move, if I just want to move all of them together, I could, but my center point would be here. And now I'm going to show you what happens when we make a group out of these. Because if I wanted to move all these together, I could move them, but they would always be going from whatever the last selected object is. Okay. All right, so I undid that. All right, so now I'm just going to window select all of them. Okay, and you're going to go up here, so back to the same menu, edit menu. This is the same place where we got our duplicate tools, and you go to group. All right, and it also has a hotkey, which is Control G. So when you get to be more sophisticated, you probably use more hotkeys. Okay, so I'm going to hit group. Okay, now we see something has happened. Look in our outliner, something else has happened here. This has changed. And our objects are a little different. Now they're all green, okay? So you can still pick on the single objects, but now we can do something different. So you can pick on the single objects, and I haven't gone over the modes too much yet, but if I go over here to hierarchy mode, pick on that, they all get picked together. You notice that? So it's a little different. So if I go pick on this one, I can pick the individual ones, but if I go to this one, to hierarchy, all of a sudden I'm picking on all of them. Let me explain what this is. This is what you call a hierarchy. So this is a group. There's a sequential grouping to these things. And when I grouped the objects, and I selected them and I hit group, it created this. And it has a name here, change the name, and I don't see the individual objects anymore. They are now underneath the hierarchy. So I'm going to click on this little plus key here, plus symbol, and now they pop up. So what's basically happened is this is roughly kind of like a folder, a file folder within Maya. So now everything is grouped together into a group. And what I can do is if I picked on this, then you notice it picks on all of them. But if I went underneath the group and I picked on them, they would be picked individually. Okay. So what I want to do now is I can do this. I can rename this, and then I double click on there. So I'm going to call this cube, and with layers and with geometry, I've been giving them these like special naming items here. So for groups, I like to say GRP. And then if you know you're going to have multiple groups with cube in it, and then you would do underscore 01. Okay. Now those are all useful. You don't have to use them, but like when you start getting complex objects with a lot of pieces in it and you're copying a lot of them, sometimes that's useful, especially if you go on to like animation, or if you're going on to engineering. It's good to have all these things, with these very clean numbered kind of naming conventions, okay? Now also too, I noticed here too, it's changed the order of these. So I'll show you something else you can do in here. In a group, you can move the order of things. So let me actually move this one down first. If you go with your middle mouse button, oops, actually I made a little group within a group. It's a little tricky sometimes, but yeah. So yeah, now I moved order. You just have to be careful with it, because if you drop one on top of one, then what happens is then it makes a group. That's another way to make a group. But I don't suggest doing that way too much, because that's not as clean a way to do things. Okay, so now I got my order back. So I got everything ordered the way I want it. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. All right, and then if you want to, you can close this up. Especially later on when you get to animation, you're going to want to close these little folders up, because these scenes can get pretty big. Oh, another thing too is I might want to move this whole group over, because if you notice, it's offset, because I started at the 0 point here. Maybe I want the whole group to be at the 0 point. So now I have hierarchy mode picked, okay? So now if I pick on something, it's not picking the individual, it's picking the whole hierarchy. And then I can click on the move key right there, right? And I can then move everything over. Actually, you know what I can do too? Here's something I can also do. I can go to modify, center pivot. All right, so now I have everything grouped together, and the pivot's right in the middle of everything here, okay? So now I'm gonna move everything over here to 0, okay? There we go. Now, there's another interesting thing here too. Don't get too worried about this, which makes things a little more sophisticated here. But so when I pick on the group has its own transform values. Let me turn this off. So it was moved -3, okay? Now what I can do also too, there's another thing as well we can do here. Don't get too worried about this, but I can go to modify freeze transforms. So now its new world is this. That's where the group's 0 point is always this. So if I move from the spot, that's always there. Don't get too worried about freezing transforms. We'll get a little more into that later. But what I wanted to show you was underneath, if I go underneath the hood here, then each one of these can have their own transforms within here, like if I move them. So if I move these different spots, they would have their own transforms, and you can move things individually within the group and then move the whole group. Like if I wanted to, say I wanted to change some of these. Well, let me try this. Let me move this one. Go to move, okay. Let me move this here, and let me move this one. Oops, I picked the hierarchy. Oh, I'm picking the hierarchy. Let me move. I got to get number 3. I have to pick there because I'm in hierarchy mode. Okay, the reason I was picking because I'm in hierarchy mode there. If I pick, when you're in the outliner, you can pick anything, but when you're out here, then these kind of control what you can pick. Okay, so now when I'm in the hierarchy, okay, so now I've moved these. So, but now I'm in hierarchy mode. I can either pick it from here or I can pick it here. But now, if you notice, now when I move it, they all move together. Like that like transform I put in there, it stays the same. Okay, so now I'm going to move it down. Now, if I want to get rid of that, see, look, when I'm at the hierarchy level, at the top level, it's 0 here. But if I go down here, now you'll see it. Okay, so now you see it. See, this has its own relative space here. This will make a lot more sense later. But so now if I wanted to get rid of that, then I'll just type in 0. I'll get rid of that movement from that thing, that object. Okay, and let me get into number 3. Now you notice that one that has a -1 transform. So let me type in 0. Okay, so now they're all back. All right, so there you go. So now you have all of these here. The one last thing too is you can put a group on a layer if you want. Yeah, so if you want to put them on a layer, you can put them on a layer and then you can switch them on, switch them off. Let me see if I can get over here. Here we go. I had something on a window on the side of my window that you guys can't see, but I'm in my Zoom window here. Okay, there we go. So now I just put them on a layer too. So the group is on a layer, okay? So that's something that's also very handy, okay? So there you go. That's pretty much everything we're gonna cover in groups and hierarchies for the moment. But this is, you know, the basics. This is the basic building blocks of Maya for, you know, making much more complex models. Okay. All right. On to the next lesson.